What is up, gang? Another Friday, another live stream coming at you hot from the shop, and it is hot today. It is like 97 in here. Let's get some updates. Let's get some people coming in, and then we will get right into it with the happenings of the shop. And of course, the could you, should you. Jeremy is back, so he'll be in the office with me. But yeah, so we got this little SRT8 car in Challenger. We're doing a fuel injector cleaning, making sure that everything's going good. There's a small misfire going on, so we did a compression check, just verifying everything is happy. It is a 6.4 car, so we just would like to make sure. So little Pro Charger P1 SC, the old goody Holly Sniper EFI intake manifold. It's a really pretty setup, honestly. I really like this car. Wide body. It's got a featured this on our Satera detailing. It's got like a nice little crossbar grill. I really like it. It's done up in a way that's, you know, a little different than most, and I really like it. So let's see what else we got going on. Arturo is nowhere to be found. I would give a update on Jeff's car. We can actually, all of that has been done. So further than we were before. Got the oil cooler shroud back on there. Button them up, some other bits and pieces. Trans thermostat. New braided line for it. Pretty stuff. So, God, I can't wait for this thing. She'll be up and running very shortly. You guys definitely don't want to miss this bad boy. So, let's see what else we got. We'll send some invites and such, and see where we are. The truck I tore apart the motor on is currently covered up. We are waiting on cam bearings. One of those where we, pull it apart, find something, address it. I can actually show you. Not the prettiest. And it catches right there. So, one of those, we're in there. As we dive into these vehicles, we always keep customers informed of all of our findings so they can be remedied. Now is the time to do it. We're not going to just go ahead, put the cam back in it. We know it's bad. So we're going to make it right and then get it back to the customer. We're just waiting for the cam bearings to show up. One of those things where another delay that is caused by a third-party vendor. So as soon as those show up, I'm replacing this one and then the one back there. Put a bore scope through the whole thing. All the other ones look great. This one, that one, not the best. So for reliability's sake, safety, we're here. We're just going to do it and make it right. So absolutely. We also got, I'm also on this little one. Got a fuel system going on. Still in the works. Not 100% done. New cats as well. The previous cats got melted. New cats. Hardware. What up, Ray? What's cracking? So, just got to finish the rest of the fuel system. Here is the big old filter. I mean, I got big hands. This is a big 128 mil filter. So, really excited for this. I'll have the flex harness right about here. The return will come out that. Here's a return just tucked up so it doesn't get on anything, but really excited to see this thing. What's up, Jeff? I don't know if you saw, but she is so much. Oh, it's got a 3/4 race cam. It's got a 750 double pumper. It hops a Coke can in second, baby. Hops a Coke can in second. But yeah, I just want to show you, Jeff, all the new goodies. Got braided line. Woo-wee. So, this red Jeep here, getting a little tune on. See a comment about that from Jose. This red Jeep is a Pro Charger setup. I don't remember too much off the top of my head. Is a D1 SC. So, she'll make some power. We are waiting, I believe, on a battery for this thing. But yeah, nothing out of the ordinary for us. Of course, the color matched Brembos. But yeah, should be fun. See what else we got going on. Of course, if you guys ask, I will do my best to show you exactly what is going on. I obviously can't show all things. There are some things that are secret, but I'll try and show you. Like this hat. This hat's a secret. You can't get this hat. This is the Tulo hat. So we got a WK2 in. You guys have seen this thing. This is the big old compound boost. Beautiful gutted blower setup. Inner chiller, IC chiller. The plug and play kit. All these green marks. If you're ever wondering, what do these green marks mean? Because you'll see it on our stuff. This shows it's torqued. It's torqued. It's where it should be. And it also gives us a visual. If something happens where it starts to loosen up over time, we'll be able to tell right away. But this is a nice quick visual. Hey, this is torqued. I'm good. So, really nice, you know, here too. So, new heat exchanger. This car previously did not have a heat exchanger in. The old setup it was running when it came to us, the heat exchanger was removed for the blower. So long street driving, anything that was, you know, relatively time intensive, it just started to get hot. So put the heat exchanger back in. The three-way bypass is going back in, so this thing is going to get nice and cold. Essentially, because the blower is gutted, you know, it's just an air-to-water intake manifold, just slightly different, and you know, it has a pulley on it that doesn't really do much. She's also getting two-step, some other fun things. So stage 6 2-step. So this thing is going to be a weapon. Oh my God, is this thing going to be a weapon? It's on, you know, a nice little tire, but yeah, I can't wait for this thing. She is going to hook, book, and get out of here. So, Jeep, not sure if the welder has managed to stop by. Let me just check. Ooh. It looks like he's added a bit more. So that one, sorry, I should turn the camera around. That one should be ready relatively quickly. Also, something different. New Cherokee. New Cherokee in here. And if you look, it's debadged. It's debadged. Why is it debadged, you might ask? Because we're wrapping it. We are wrapping this truck. I really, really want to tell you what it is. Also, this interior, I gotta say, the wood grain and the quilting is kind of doing something to me. I really like it. And I don't know if I'm ready to tell y'all what color this car is going to get wrapped. But I can tell you, Matt's going to wrap it, and it is going to be perfect. You guys know how Matt is with his OCD. Those that have seen that truck in person will know it is minty mint. That boy takes his time on this kind of stuff. So, let's see what else. What else do we got? Do we got anything else? Can I show this?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Just want to double check. One more thing, just to remind y'all. Ooh. Take a peek at this. It's 3D printed, Johnny. So this is that intake manifold we're working on. It's good to see it in this stage. I can't wait. I got to get my own. So map sensor provisions. So this thing's gonna be really fun. It's gonna be nice, you know, be able to have adjustable runner length, whole bunch of other stuff. NA, boosted, air to water, just a solid, you know, air only manifolds. Let us know what you want and we can make it happen. What's happening, Ben? How you doing? I am quite well today. I'm making cars go faster and, you know, no complaints there. So I'm gonna have to get me one of these sexy things. Look how thick that is. Woo! And the crazy thing is, because it's plastic, it's just light. So, all right, let's see what else. Matt's getting the wrap prepped. I don't want to show Matt. That's about it for the shop right now. So, just waiting on a few things, other jobs progressing, fuel systems getting done, cars getting dynoed, turbo kits getting made. So, things are going fast. That's how we like it. Let me see about Jeremy. You ready? All right, he's coming in. What's up, Rick? How you doing today? All right, let me actually. Is this one of them? No. Yes, it is. All right. Oh, the other thing I want to point out, which is kind of cool, because we care and we do our testing. This has Satera Spice in it with a bit of that plastic from that intake manifold. And it's been sitting in there, God, I want to say like 2 months now. Plastic's fine. So before we're going to get into it, make a bunch of them, sell them, we want to make sure that the fuels that these intakes are going to see, they're going to like. So just sitting in there, you know, not only that, but other opportunities. So nice to see. Satera Spice is a great gas. And the plastic likes it. Jeremy's out there trying to buy some time. Just waiting for Hellraiser. I feel it, man. I feel it. Waiting is the name of the game. So waiting on those cam bearings. Waiting on other fuel fittings. What else are we waiting on, Jeremy?
For what? Everything.
Everything. Literally everything. When are we not waiting on things? All right.
I mean, our pulleys, right? We're waiting for coating.
Yep. Waiting on, Grip Tech. That's been how long now?
Well, it's not Grip Tech's fault. Again,
yeah, it's
the anodization.
Yep.
So this goes back to kind of piggybacking off what we briefly hit on last week about the delays, right? So like Grip Tech we just mentioned. Grip Tech's great. They put their coating on real quick. We have to wait for Bob, get back to work. We have to wait for it. After they do the Grip Tech coating, they anodize them for us too. So we've been waiting, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think, on this batch of pulleys for approaching a month. Forgot how to talk. So it's just part of it, man. It's getting worse too. I've talked to a couple other people in the industry, and they're seeing the same things we are. So you know, it's rough, man. It's very, very rough. On the V13, so I know you asked about it yesterday, so we did take it to the track. Car was averaging 145, 150. No 60 foot on it.
What is this in reference to?
The V13 Vortec blower that we put on the yellow car. So we ran into an issue where the radials that he purchased didn't fit, so he was making passes with his 3-year-old
Nexans.
Yeah, Nexans.
20-inch range.
Dry rotted and cracked and stuff. So the 60 foot was non-existent. So, yeah, I mean, the thing made over a dozen passes, you know what I mean? So it just had no 60 foot. We had no way to get any type of traction out of the hole and everything. So, sadly, it mile an hour very, very well. When requested to increase the shift RPM a little bit, the little drop-in rod piston motor didn't like it too much. So the V13 could make more power than what a drop-in rod piston 392 could do. So that one's in the process. We're just waiting for the new power plant on it, and we're really going to party with it with a proper 426 now going forward. But the blower, the setup and everything was outstanding. It worked well. It was constantly abused. I mean, we had no. I think we did have to replace one belt, but that's because we had the original belt on from all the testing. So
it was an old belt, man.
Old belt.
Tons of dyno poles.
Yeah, so we swapped that out, and it did well for what it is there and after. So no big real subject. Like I said, we piggybacked a little bit on a couple things from what we talked about last week in regards to delays and things like that.
I was talking about the cam bearings.
Yeah, cam bearings, didn't expect that. Did you talk about the coils we just
no.
Yeah. So you can tell them since you're working on it.
So that black car out there's that misfire I was talking about. And when I looked at it, the coil packs, they're shiny. And anyone that sees Dodge coil packs, they're not shiny. Then when I'm taking the bolts out, the normal OEM Dodge coil packs, they have a bolt, and then there's a washer on the bolt that's held in place by the threads. Those didn't have it. So there are two things that say, probably not. The other thing is where they were purchased from. So eBay, they said they were genuine. They came in Mopar boxes that you don't really have a way of knowing.
Yeah.
So
and it's one of those, you got to be careful where you get them from. That's why we stick to dealers that might be a little bit more, but
Yes.
And then in this instance, Logan told me yesterday it had aftermarket coils and needs OEM. And the customer goes, no, I bought OEM, you know, here's the box. And then when I went out and looked at them, I go, I've never seen a set of OEM coils so shiny.
Like they are gloss.
Like gloss. It
Yeah.
looks like they were painted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you get where it seems like it's off, you know, and they etched in the OEM part number and they came in a box. It's very easy to you know, get fraudulent items like that. So just be careful.
Yes.
I mean, we have, what, 30, 40 cars here right now. I've owned over a dozen Mopars myself. I've never seen a shiny coil like that in regards to an OEM setup. They're all that matte finish. So, I mean, even brand new cars, 23s, you know what I mean? We've seen demons in here. They're not shiny. So nothing about them screamed it, even though it looked like, you know, on paper and in a box form that it was there. So, there you go.
Out of there.
Yeah, you're kicking me out of the
Sorry.
So just be careful. But again, that one was, that car had a cylinder one misfire, injectors checked out, spark plugs checked out, compression checked out. This vehicle originally had MSD coils on it that we recommended to go to OEM on, and then here we are and still chasing it because I'm pretty sure they are not OEM, but we will see. So, so that being said, we'll jump right into questions. Could you, should use, and see what you guys have questions on.
Absolutely. So I saw one earlier on a piggyback it, the Hellcat 2.4 blower and the Red Eye 2.7. What's the maximum amount of boost you can run out of those before they kind of start to fall off and diminishing returns or just making a ton of heat?
Yeah, so boost is a measurement of restriction.
Yes.
So there's so many variables that can change your boost output, from the cam, the headers, the engine itself, the displacement. So what we're going to focus on is the pulley combination, just to make it easier. Because at the end of the day, when you're shopping around trying to figure out how to set it up, that's what you are going to really look for. So on the 2.4s, we will start there. The maximum safe, kind of right on the edge, but the maximum safe rotor speed that we like to see, we use our 274 upper with a 10% overdrive lower. So that gives you what we like to see in regards to like a street car racing, the maximum speed out of those rotors that you want to use. That usually nets, you know, right around, you know, low to mid 900s. You can exceed 4 digits if you know, get that blower ported. On some race-specific applications, we do swap the ring and put a 266 upper to get just a little bit more, you know, for an 8 or 9, you know, low 9-second quarter mile. It's okay. Don't recommend a daily drive on that, but that's what we do out of the 2.4s. The 2.7s, due to being a little bit larger, we don't like to spin them as fast. We usually stop with our 286 upper and 10% lower in regards to rotor speeds. So naturally it's a little bit slower because of the fact it is bigger. Now it does produce just about the same amount of airflow as a 2.4 with the 2.74 10 combo. So you can get 4 digits out of it with a ported application. But yeah, that's the rotor speed we like to go. I know there are people out there that have gone more aggressive. They might have some luck with it, but the numbers kind of lean more towards you're going to see some failures, rotors making contact, even when ported. They don't last forever with that type of abuse. So that's kind of where we like to stop it on either or application.
So if you were building a motor, would you go for a 2.4, 2.7, ported 2.4, ported 2.7?
I'm more of a fan of the 2.4s, believe it or not, just because they can technically produce the same amount of airflow that's needed to produce the bigger numbers. The reality is both blowers can make more power than the stock motor can handle for a long period of time. So, but the blower being smaller makes it more efficient. So although you are spinning it faster because it's, you know, it is smaller, it makes it easier on the engine. So if you can make the same, like I say, getting the smallest blower you can, turbo you can, to achieve your long-term horsepower goal, that's my vote. I'm a big fan. Although, you know, my personal Charger that's for sale, that one has a 2.7 blower on it. It's built, ported HD race bearings, and I'm just running a 310 upper on it with a stock blower. So I'm just not spinning it because I'm not going for big power. But if I change my mind and go, you know what, I want to see if I can get to 4 digits, I personally would sell that blower and get a 2.4 on it. But to each their own, and then the end power goal is more so up to you. So.
Could you, should you, if doing a Pro Charger setup on a 6.4, could you do the 6 rib, or does it make sense to move to the 8 rib? Does it help that much more?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the battle of belt wrap and the belt slip, right? So generally what we see happen, you know, if you're like, oh, stock motor and just a bolt on the 6 rib is more than enough, you know, 6-8 pounds. The reality is most people don't stick with that for a long period of time. So that's why you go to the 8 rib, which allows for more belt surface area to reduce the slippage on it, right? We don't have a clutch pulley available anymore for those type of setups. So it's one of those where everything you can do to prevent slippage, right? One, slip wears the belts out. On a solid hub setup, doesn't matter the blower, it's going to slip every time it shifts and you decel. But any way you can reduce that is just more beneficial for longevity and performance, right? Belt slip does not make horsepower. So,
nope.
You know, it really, that's why we always do a short and long-term goal to do the full assessment. If you tell me I will never, ever, ever go above 6 pounds of boost, then yeah, there's no need to invest in the stage 2s or the 8 rib setups. You're fine with the 6 rib. But if there's any inkling of it, spend the money the first time, do it right, and then you're at least prepared for the future.
On that 8 rib, let's just say, just for simplicity's sake, you know, maybe a drop in rods, pistons, 6.4, so it actually lives. What do you kind of see those making before you start just belt slipping it? Can you kind of make 1100
really,
or?
I've made 1100 before in an 8 rib setup. It's not easy though, and it's not consistent. So again, what you have to remember is the belt does slip every time it shifts. Every time you accelerate and let off the gas, there's a moment of slipping. So you multiply that over daily driving, right? You multiply that over time. It slowly wears at the ribs on the belt. I wish we still had it. Our neighbor Mike over there with his Mustang, he's running a big old V13 Vortec on his Coyote. And he pulled it down really aggressive, trying to make all the power. I mean, he was trying for 4 digits through a Turbo 400, but he was struggling with belt slip. We could see it on his dyno graph where boost was literally falling off. And the belt looked fine. Like from the exterior, you couldn't see anything, but he took it off and flipped it over, and you physically could see that the ribs were just melted away. It literally just destroyed them. So from the top, and when you touch it, you feel ribs. But the surface area comes from the V where the rib goes down inside the pulley. When you start chopping away at that, you're losing surface area. So the belts have just got progressively worse. So do keep that in mind that, you know, it does slip every time, right? So any way you can kind of reduce or battle that is extremely, extremely important.
Absolutely. How far can ARP studs, heads, mains, rods get you? Let's just say it's a drop-in motor. Or drop-in rods piston combo. I guess it's kind of dependent on what the rod piston combo is and what the motor is.
Yeah, you know, the reality of it is I know they have these 625, you know, tool steel, all of these other things, right?
Special fancy.
Before those came out, the ARP 2000s were used on engines everywhere, and people making 14, 15, 1600, and I've done that too. I've made 1400 plus to the wheels out of just ARP head studs and bolts that are torqued down correctly. So. Naturally, now that there are things that are stronger, it doesn't hurt to go to them. But yeah, I mean, 12, 13, 1400 wheel I have made out of ARP, just, you know, basic studded hardware. So, you know, beyond that, does it hurt? You know, and same thing with billet mains. We can even talk about that. You know, that it's a great offer, but is it really necessary? I mean, an iron block is massively strong. So,
right.
You know, there's guys making 12, like I said, think about before they were out, people still were making massive amounts of power, right? Go back to the, you know, when you know, Chargers, late Challengers in the late 2000s, and then even the WK1 Jeeps that were, you know, tapping on the doors of it, you know, in the 8s and 8.0s, right? There weren't really tool steel 625 studs or anything like that available, and they were doing just fine on it. So they can hold pretty well. It's just that there is upgrades available, and then they are stronger. So you start really turning it up. Absolutely, it's not a bad upgrade. You know, initially if you're going to be 30 grand into a motor, you know, an extra grand for some reinforced hardware is not a bad idea. But don't doubt those ARP proven studs that have been around for decades. So.
Saw this last night on the old Facebook. Should you stick with the stock diff and maybe axles and a diff brace, or move to some aftermarket, possibly like a custom Ford 9-inch?
Yeah, we've talked about it several times.
Yes.
It's a question brought up over and over again. The reality is, if you review what the fastest vehicles are with this platform, you know, Charger, Challenger, even the Trackhawks, most of them are running stock differentials. They're very strong as is from the factory. So, you know, the beauty of a performance diff brace paired up with AAD suspension to help absorb any type of slop, they hold very well. And the cost versus, you know, cost of the upgrade versus just a replacement, I mean, a 9-inch can get you upwards of 10 grand with upgrades and things that go into it, right? So, where you can find a pumpkin for $1,000 or even less on the market. So you could have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pumpkins sitting at your house ready to go to swap compared to just one differential. Now, race cars, absolutely. If you're like a full tube chassis, gutted, like you are a full race car, it's really kind of hard to beat the 9-inch, depending on what those true long-term goals are. But in regards to any type of street car that you're trying to race it to just have some durability, the factory one, my 1,500 horsepower Charger Hellcat, twin turbo, 850s, full weight. I had the stock 309 in it with a diff brace and AED drag suspension around it. So and it's still driving with the same rear end in it now. That rear end actually has been in my Red Eye that was twin turboed. It was in my first 2020 Charger Hellcat as well. I mean, that rear diff has been...
That's been around, man.
It's been around, yeah.
Wow.
She got that rear end got around.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, they last. They're durable, and you take care of them, maintenance and proper setup around it, they're strong. So I don't see too many people truly needing that 9-inch setup, just due to the cost and what's available out there. So.
Should you cam your Hellcat if it's your daily driver? How big of an impact does camming your vehicle? How big of an impact does adding an aftermarket cam to your engine affect drivability? Or
the bigger you go, in regards to if you want the chop and everything like that, it can affect drivability. So the way we have our cams spec'd, all the ones you see in the parking lot right now, they have stock torque converters. They sound great. And after done tuning, they drive great too. So, the thing about a boost cam when you're talking Hellcat powered, for the most part, they, a proper boost cam to optimize efficiency and power output is not too aggressive. So, with tuning tricks, we can make it sound aggressive, but it's really not as bad as like a 392 aggressive cam where you're in NA really trying to push. You don't need as much overlap for a boost cam. So, there are things to it. The pros, right, it makes the engine more efficient. So you see your boost levels drop and horsepower stay the same, or you might even gain a little bit, and then you can pull it down and bump it up. We shared a couple weeks ago our level 1.5 with the cam, and it made 850 wheel on pump gas and 950 wheel on E85, and it literally is making 15 pounds of boost. So there are benefits to it, and that car, I'm just finishing up the tuning with the flex fuel, going back and forth on it, but it drives great. I mean, no issues. Obviously, 5 mile an hour or less in parking lot where you're lurching along, it might, start to adapt to the chop of the cam, but it's not horrible by any means. So it's a lot of work. It's not a cheap modification on this Hemi platform.
No.
But there are pros to it. There are definitely benefits to it. Now that we have tested and trialed them more. So good question.
Absolutely.
One I have that the sales team mentioned to me, and we've hit it on it before, but again revisiting because we might have new people checking in. Should you modify my 5.7 6.4, or should I trade it in and get a Hellcat? We talk to people every day about boosting the 5.7 392s, about putting cams in them and really trying to, the big thing is I want Hellcat power, right? Or I want to be a Trackhawk killer with my 392 Jeep. So could you? Yeah, absolutely. We do it all the time. It's, part of what keeps us in business, right? Should you? That is entirely up to you. So the things we discuss with people is, one, the cost to do the modifications with the target of at Hellcat power, Trackhawk power, Durango, and exceeding lightly. You're going to spend a lot of money if you want reliability with it as well. So you can take stages where, 392, it's easy to make stock Hellcat power. Put a blower on it, right? Go for it. Now we know that, that might not be the most reliable due to, how the 392 engine is designed. So the risk is higher, right? But if you're 15 grand into a blower installing the 392, you're way under the cost of a Hellcat, right? But what does a Hellcat have that the 392 doesn't? Well, it has the transmission, it has the suspension, it has the bigger brakes, it has, the torque converter.
The name, it's a Hellcat.
The name. But for the most part, when you're talking money-wise out of the gate, what are you getting for a Hellcat? You get all those things with it. So then if you start to count, all right, well, if I want to make it reliable, well, reinforce the motor, even a simple rod piston setup, right? Then you have a transmission upgrade. And then you have, your drive shaft upgrade. Hellcats are stronger as is, And you start going down the list of all the things you're going to have to upgrade to equal that. You still might be cheaper depending on the year Hellcat you're trying to beat. But always remember, if you go to sell that vehicle or trade it in, you are not necessarily going to get back the money you put into it.
No.
It's still a 392 Charger Challenger, whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, that's what the value is. it's going to be very hard to find somebody that values your vehicle at the cost of what a Hellcat, Trackhawk, or whatever may be, where they can just go buy one of those instead of a modified vehicle. So that's kind of the biggest piece about it is really that end-all goal. And the reality is 600-700 horsepower, if you're in that range, modifying a car is going to be cheaper, and it doesn't, at the end of the day, we spend money on worse things, right? So if you don't get back what you put into it, it's not the end of the world. But it's one of those things where you're not going to get back what you put into it. It's not an investment. You're going to lose the money when you modify a 392. So if you're married to the car, have a good relationship with it, and you really, really see yourself never getting rid of it, then absolutely. The other thing we go into is if you want a 1,500 wheel horsepower car, right? Hellcat, you're going to have to replace everything. Trust me, been there, done that. You have to replace everything on the...
Oh, God.
Are we still there? Sorry. All right. We'll call you back. That's one of those things where 1,500 horsepower, you're replacing everything. Motor, transmission, drive shaft, axles, fuel system, everything, right? You're not going to get back what you put into it in a Hellcat or a 392. So what are the pros, cons there? Well, the Hellcat, like we've talked about, has the wide bands from the factory, makes it a little perk, right? The starting suspension setup, a lot of guys run 8, 7s even on stock suspension for the most part. They run a 392, 5.7. You might lack that, so you will have to address that more. So, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're about to dump 80, 90, 100 grand into a car, the biggest thing is, are the wide bands worth it, right? That's up to you to determine. And do keep in mind, before Hellcats and Coyotes were around and these German cars, we modified and tuned cars without wide bands forever. So it is a nice pro. There are some safety things built into it, but it's not required to make big power. So is a V6 chassis a good starting car, and then you swap all this stuff in? As long as you understand race car, you're not going to get it back, and it's going to be worth a V6 when you're done. Then yeah, you're going to save some money in a process like that. So is it worth it? The worth is up to you and how deep you want to go with it. That's something to always consider. You are modding a car to achieve what a stock car can do. So obviously the initial components around it are not all designed for that. So keep that in mind. So we modify them every day. I tune them every day. You absolutely can. It doesn't mean you shouldn't, but these are things to consider when heading into the modification route. So.
Absolutely.
What else you got?
Absolutely. Red Eye specific question. On a level 1, 2, and 3 R packages, is there any reason to go to a one-piece drive shaft over the Red Eye? Will the Red Eye take it?
Yeah. So the Red Eye. So we have a silver one here in the parking lot. It makes over 1,100 wheel horsepower. We went to a one-piece drive shaft because it's kind of what everybody does on it, and it had a vibration. So we're working on getting that warranted. Some people have dealt with that. Not a big deal. But he has gone out and run solid 8s on this car with the factory drive shaft in it. So it's one of those, the Red Eye drive shafts are very, very stout. Again, you put reinforcement around it, get rid of the slop, cradle lockouts, diff brace, help the drive shaft out. He's cut 1 260 foots, and a little bit of weight reduction on the car, but just typical interior seats out, stuff like that. But yeah, it cut 1 260 foots. It's one of those things, man. My Red Eyes, I kept the stock drive shafts in it. The benefit of a 2-piece, it helps absorb vibration for a street car. It's nice to have that where it's absorbed and you still can go out and cut 1 2 1 360 foots, right? My Charger Hellcat has a 1-piece in it purely because we were making 1,500, and reality is if you're going to use it for that long, I don't think the 1-piece is going to last a long time, but for the most part, they're very, very strong for 90% of the people out there. Right? The factory Red Eye drive shaft is more than enough. So on the 1, 2, or 3 level package we have, the factory drive shaft, not concerned at all. Just get a rear diff brace in, and the JXB center support bearing. The reality is, I don't, that's a mileage thing, right? Once you put a ton of miles on it, that bearing support starts to fail. Majority of the failures I've seen, Blake Mushy and his factory drive shaft failed after I don't know how many track passes on it, making 900 wheel plus and full weight. That car has to weigh 4,900 pounds, running mid-9s, low 9s. His actually just pretzeled. It just twisted. It had nothing to do with the JXB, or it had nothing to do with the center support. Having that in place wouldn't have changed anything. It literally just was twisted into a pretzel. So, again, one of those things kind of like 625 tool steel studs or something like that. The JXB center support is a an option out there to help reinforce something that's otherwise just a little, you know, bearing slash rubber and stuff like that. So it does help make it stronger, but that's very uncommon to see that be the failure of a red-eye drive shaft. So good upgrade you can do, absolutely, but the red-eye drive shafts are very, very stout. So.
What about Trackhawk?
Trackhawks, man, their drive shafts are a lot shorter, and from the factory, they're pretty beefy. So the axles are more so what, you know, we see as a concern there. We've thrown drive shafts in, you know, Trackhawks just because, again, but you really research, it's very not common to see the factory drive shafts fail. So, but again, if it fails, then that's a good time to do an upgrade. But, you know, in regards to being super proactive on it, I wouldn't say it's one of those necessary items. Front drive shafts specifically, too, it doesn't take on nearly as much load as that as the rear drive shaft. So, you know, I know there are front drive shaft upgrades, but I've never truly seen a front drive shaft fail, you know, just due to pure torque. It's more so the rear drive shaft that you could see that in. So, but yeah, on the SUV platform, same thing on the TRX. The factory one is very, very stout. Obviously, there's the clunk with it, so there are a couple aftermarket solutions out there, but the factory one is very, very stout as is. So 90% of the people won't ever have to worry about it. So good question.
Absolutely. Let's say, hypothetically, you live in the middle of nowhere and no access to gas whatsoever, but you want a race car. Would you opt to ship in E85 or an unleaded race gas?
If you're going to pay for barrels, you know me, I'm going to vote for E85.
Yeah.
You know, even unleaded race fuels, they still have additives in it that will eat plugs, O2 sensors, and things like that. It doesn't necessarily, you know, because there's no lead in it, doesn't have the cooling factor the same way as E85 does. E85 burns cleaner, you know, very high octane, so the combination of clean burning, cooler, high octane, you know,
for the environment.
It's great for the environment, absolutely. You know, so big fans of that. It doesn't, you know, take, you know, it helps spark plugs last longer, even cleans up stuff as it burns versus, you know, race fuels do the exact opposite for the most part. Yeah, so
nasties.
We always kind of vote, and you know, I don't have race gas sitting in my shop, but I have 110. 160 plus gallons of E85 variances here, so it just tells you what we kind of prefer and stick to.
It here on his desk.
There. Testing the plastic we're using for our intake manifold.
I was going over that. It's held up really well. It's been here, what, like 2 months?
Yeah, 2 months. Yeah. That's our Satera Spice race fuel, so it's 85% ethanol, 118 octane race gas, and that's the plastic that we use for the intake manifolds we're working on. So we just the way to test it, make sure it will hold up to abuse. So I think it'll be okay with an injector spraying on it a little bit. So
it's not submerged.
Yeah. So,
let's make fuel hats, baby.
Yeah. Question just popped up: water meth versus E85 on a boosted 392. Better choice. So for those again that don't understand, E85 is a gas that it's a type of gas you put in your gas tank. So it goes through the whole fuel system, sprays out your injectors, right? Water meth injection generally is a secondary system that you add on with jets. Whether you do a direct port where you put one for each cylinder, like nitrous, but with water meth. Whether you do one in front of the throttle body, try and drop your IATs. However you run it, it's a secondary system off a secondary pump. With that, there's a blend. You know, the more meth you run, the higher the octane. The more water you run, the more cooling it does, right? So we will use water meth mainly for cooling. So around 25% methanol, 75% water, sprayed in the intake system to help suck the heat out. Little octane bump, it's good. The reason we don't like to lean on water meth if E85 is available is because there's more. You know, it's one of those. Oh, what's up? You guys working an event, aren't you? What are you doing? Get back to work.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? What's up, the Mushin family? But so with the water meth, you know, it's one of those you got to be ready if it fails. With the 85, if your fuel pump goes out, injector stop, you know, right? Water meth, you are relying on a secondary system, whether you put an LED in so you know when it's on, you know, whatever the case may be. If you're leaning on it for the octane and running an aggressive tune, what if that system fails? The car has no idea.
No.
The car literally has no idea.
No safeties.
So you're running 20 degrees of timing for your given setup, you know, 10 pounds of boost, and your water meth fails. Not only are you going to see your intake temps skyrocket, but the car doesn't know it just lost its octane. There's no way for it to know. You can use the IAT multiplier and try to pull timing out, but you're still leaning on your main base table having the aggressive timing for octane. So, you know, they've come a long way. Don't get me wrong. The way they used to be a decade or so ago, and when I was running it on my personal car, The pumps are much better quality. They have fail-safes built into it with LEDs and things like that to let you know, but you still got to understand that you're relying on that to, supply the fuel for the octane that you need. So combination, water meth with, E85, sure. Like I said, run a diluted concentration with more water so it cools better, and then you got, E85 doing its thing. We've done that on a couple builds with good results to help those IATs stay more consistent if you don't have a chiller or a decent cooling intercooler system.
That 11320, we did that poacher kit.
Yeah, poacher kits, when we do our poacher kits on it, they're chemical cooled supercharger system for low boost applications. We have one running around with like 16 pounds of boost now, and it's 100% water meth cooled. So you can do that.